Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens. Do you think that we're the last model of humans on Earth? Is this the final impulse? Were any of us there in the shift from Neanderthal to Homo sapiens? Can we imagine what that jump was to self-reflective consciousness about 50,000 years ago? And now, as we are feeling within ourselves the rise of whole system, divine, co-creative consciousness, we can imagine ourselves impelled by the very same core of the spiral that brought through Homo erectus, habilis, Neanderthal, sapien, sapiens, sapiens. We don't yet even fully have the word for this human that we are becoming, that's capable of co-evolving with nature, co-creating with spirit, and guiding the system towards more conscious love and life. The core of the spiral finally broke through in human consciousness in the great prophets of humanity, in Buddha, in Jesus, in Mohammed, in Krishna, in Confucius, in Aurobindo and the Mother, in Ramana, in Papaji, in Teilhard de Chardin, the core of the spiral, the Logos, the infinite intelligence, broke through, and they founded the great religions, traditions, and faiths of humanity. And whole cultures were built around these great beings, but very few of us could actively incarnate and experience the impulse directly. The human mind then began to evolve. Science and democracy emerged. Two great tools of transformation entered the story with the power to create and to destroy. The scientific mind was able to probe into the processes of creation itself, the atom, the gene, the brain, and we began to gain the powers to affect that nature with our own intention. And in 1945, the United States, building on the great discovery of Einstein, that E=mc², we built the first atomic bombs and dropped them on Japan. The power of gods had been given to humanity through the understanding of how nature works. And suddenly we became aware that we can destroy everything. And the question arose in my mind. I was 15 years old. After the horror and after the shock, the question was, what is the meaning of our new power that's good? What are images of the future equal to this power that could attract us to use it? Are we going to use this power to destroy the world? Or have we been given an understanding of how nature works in order to co-evolve the world? And I began to read philosophy, religion. I went to an academic college. I tried to join the church. And nobody knew the meaning of all this scientific, industrial, military power that's good. And finally, I got a meeting with President Eisenhower in the Oval Office in 1952. He'd just become president of the United States. He was a friend of my father's, and he was just being polite. So he said, "Hello, young lady, what can I do for you?" And I said, "Mr. President, I have a question for you." "Yes, young lady?" "The question is, what do you think is the meaning of all our new power that's good?" And he shook his head, he looked startled, and he said, "I have no idea." And then I thought, well, we better find out. Why has the human race been given the power to destroy or to evolve? Is there a reason for it, or are we just going to misuse it? Is it a mistake that the mind understands how nature works? Is there a clue? This is what the story will be revealing. Another great breakthrough that opened our mind to the new story happened in 1960. Scientists discovered the background radiation of the first flaring forth. The Big Bang, the discovery for the very first time, scientifically, that the universe has been, is now, and will be forever evolving. It's called Cosmogenesis, the genesis of the cosmos that began at the origin of creation, and for billions and billions of years has been evolving to higher consciousness, to greater freedom, to more complex order, is now becoming aware in human mind. It is called Cosmogenesis. The new story of creation began to appear as we saw ourselves within the story of evolution. We saw ourselves as evolving within the billions of years of the process of creation. And in the very same era of the 60s came Apollo. The great chariots of flaming fire left this earth, and we landed humans on a new world. The cosmonauts, the astronauts were like very young extraterrestrials. They were like the fish who came out of the sea onto the dry land. When the fish came out, there was no biosphere. If we had landed on planet Earth in the earliest dawn, we would have had to wear a spacesuit. There was no biosphere. When the humans landed on the extraterrestrial sphere on the moon, there was no environment, but we were carrying it with us. Earth life had moved into the universal sphere, but the most important picture was that we saw ourselves as a whole for the very first time. We saw our beautiful planet, and we began to fall in love with ourselves as a whole. It was the time when the environmental movement woke up. The first lunar landing and the first Earth Day happened within the same year. That picture of Earth from space awoke us, but yet we had no vision. The spiral was not yet conscious in us. The great crises emerged, climate change that could destroy the world. Rachel Carson wrote The Silent Spring. We felt the destruction of our environment, the starvation, the hunger, the war, and for the first time in human history, we realized that we were overpopulating, we were polluting, we were overgrowing the womb of Mother Earth. We didn't even know before the mid-70s that we had an environment. Dr. Robert Mueller, who was Assistant Secretary of the United Nations, told us that when he tried to have a first conference on the biosphere, there was no word for it. It's very important that we know how new this awareness of the crises is. When I graduated from Bryn Mawr College in 1951, I was told all the problems on Earth had been solved. So it's important that we keep our compassion on ourselves, because it's only in the last 50 years that we have been aware of the mounting crises that could destroy life, and also aware of the potential to evolve life still without much of a direction of the future that could guide us. The great movements of change in the 60s were happening in the midst of the crises. The women of the world woke up. This may have been the most important awakening that we've had. And I was one of them. I was a woman with 5 children in Lakeville, Connecticut in the 50s. In our country, they called it the boring generation. We didn't know. We had lots of babies. We took care of our husbands. We took care of our house. We cooked, we cleaned, and then we got depressed. Because there was something more that we were meant to do than make ourselves comfortable and have the maximum numbers of babies. And so the women's movement began to shift the tide on planet Earth as we gained equality, we gained identity, and as we will see later, even more, we gained the yearning to express and create the greater feminine self and give birth to the new world. That's half of the human population released from reproducing up to maximum under the patriarchal structures, began to liberate itself, to reveal the potential of unconditional love, to evolve and give birth to a new world. Along with the women came the whole environmental movement, as I said, with the awareness of ourselves as part of the living environment. And then came the civil rights movement in the United States, especially in the 1960s. It's really hard for many people to realize how successful that was. That we now have an African-American president and a woman Secretary of State. And in Australia, you have a fabulous prime minister that I heard on the news the other day spoofing that it was the end of the world. I don't know if any of you saw that, but we were watching the news, and there she was, and she said, finally, that she wouldn't desert us. So she was making fun of this problem that many people think the world is coming to an end, but actually what we're going to be seeing is something new is being born. And I think your prime minister knows it, or else she couldn't have made so much fun of that with so much wit and charm. And then came, of course, the great peace movements. And the peace movements weren't just against war. They were for peace. It was natural that we would no longer be destroying ourselves. It's insane that we have these huge military establishments to kill and destroy each other. And the peace movements arose. And another thing that Robert Mueller of the United Nations says, it was actually new for this number of people to realize war, no more war. That movement came as well with the women and the environment and the civil rights movement, and then of course the great consciousness movements, both from the East, all the people that have been so deeply influenced here by Papaji, by Ramana, by the great, Ramana Maharshi, by the man who invented transcendental meditation. I'll just think of his name in just a moment. Maharshi. And then in our country, in the United States, the human potential movement, the consciousness movements, the transformational movements. And if you just did a map right now of the movements of spiritual, personal, social growth that has happened from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, you would see a vast array of humans who are being transformed. But the fact is, we're still not visible. We are not the evening news, but we are the new news. And this is what we're going to be telling. We are the new news. Now, how do we see what to do now? We have the breakdowns increasing, and we have the awareness of what we must stop doing. We must nurture the earth. We must reconnect with our mother. We must restore our lives. We must relocalize. There's much that we know that we must do, actually returning to the past and bringing it forward. But we also need to know, where are we going? And here is how I feel we can discover it. We gain evolutionary eyes, and we see the recurring patterns from the 13.7 billion years that it took to get us here. Every one of us is a resume of that whole story of creation, and the recurring patterns of the past will give us guidance as to the next step that we can take, as we ourselves are now in the story of creation, as that story becoming alive within itself. This is radically new for us. The first great lesson that is revealed from the process of creation is this: quantum transformations are nature's tradition. Nature takes jumps to radical newness. Once there was no earth, for example. Then there was earth. Once there was no life. Then there was life. Once there were no humans. And then we appeared. We begin to catch the pattern, to expect the unexpected, and to anticipate the new. It's a multi-billion-year trend. The next lesson is crises precede transformation, and problems are evolutionary drivers. And this is a very, very important lesson, because it's so easy to interpret the crises that we're facing, whether personally or socially, as totally signs of failure. They can be the destruction of Earth life. But is it not also true that the crisis is causing innovation, loving, caring, Uplift festivals, masses of us celebrating the fact that something new is being born? The crises on Earth are actually now beginning to cause us to see what's emerging. And in our personal life, we learn the design is perfect when there is a problem that keeps us from feeling whole. When there is a health crisis, when there is a personal crisis, somewhere in there is something to be learned that can emerge. We can change our mind. We can even affect our own DNA. We're learning that crisis precedes transformation. And I want to tell you just one of the most wonderful stories of an early example of this. This was way back in the early seas of Earth. The single cells were very successful. They populated. They actually overpopulated. They reproduced themselves so well that they began to stagnate, to run out of energy. It was as though life was coming to an end in the very early seas of Earth. But what happened was totally unexpected. One of the great revolutionaries of planet Earth appeared, the chlorophyll molecule. And sometimes I identify us with the chlorophyll molecule, because what the chlorophyll molecule did was find a way to capture sunlight and bring it in to the stagnating life on Earth. And when it did that, it brought in energy, but it brought in through oxygen and oxygen was poison to the single cells. If there had been an Office of Technology Assessment in the early seas of Earth, they might have banned oxygen. But what happened actually was mutation. The multicellular organisms started to cluster, to form, just like we're doing here. The single cells could not handle the energy that was coming in. But when they were capable of forming multicellular organisms, they could metabolize that energy and they could actually mutate. And out of that, what was created was the biosphere, plants, animals, humans, and now us on planet Earth. So this makes us aware when we have a problem, when we have a crisis, when something new is coming in, is it leading us toward a mutation? If we understand the direction of evolution, or is it simply leading us towards destruction? It's very hard to know. But if you see that the tendency is nature, is to create jumps through greater whole systems by forming synergistic wholes greater than the sum of parts, what we're doing is we're getting the secret design of nature in order to metabolize the destructive energies that are coming onto planet Earth. When we create connectivity among ourselves, when we create little hubs of multicellular humans who are coming together, where each of us beginning to express what we want to create, what we love, what we care for, what we're bringing together, it appears that this is the design of nature. A secret design. That synergy, the formation of whole systems out of separate parts, is the way nature takes the quantum jumps. And I think the reason that Bharat and Bhavani are so deeply attuned in bringing the Uplift Festival together, and perhaps many festivals throughout the world, by gathering together people exactly like ourselves, and as we cluster into smaller groups within this larger whole to see what each of us wants to give, to create and be, we may find ourselves able to take the new power that can destroy the world and evolve it into a new process that can restore the earth and free humanity for a future far greater than anything we've ever seen before. This is our possibility. And here, for me, the very, very good news. It's called the law of complexity consciousness. And it was discovered by Teilhard de Chardin. He's a Catholic Jesuit paleontologist, never published by the church in his lifetime. But what he discovered was God in evolution. What he discovered is that every turn on that spiral, there was greater complexity, greater interiority and connectivity of the separate parts, and greater freedom to evolve. And that law of complexity consciousness he saw happening now among us. And he had a wonderful phrase for it that actually struck me when I first read it in the 60s. The next level of complexity consciousness, he said, is the noosphere, the thinking layer, the global brain, mind, heart of humanity is going to connect and get collective eyes. A global brain, heart, mind may turn on, and I would like to say to all the people on live stream and all the people on their phone apps that we are having a collective experience of our birth, because we are collecting heart and connecting heart with heart and center with center right now. And let's just take a moment to see this vision of Teilhard's connecting heart with heart, center with center, with the global communication system beginning to be able to pick it up. Are we beginning to infuse the global nervous system with love? He felt that when there is enough of an impulse of love connecting that global brain, that global nervous system, that nervous system will get its collective eyes. It will wake up and feel and be in love with itself as a whole. Just like a multicellular organism had to connect until it could feel itself as one. According to this view, our connecting, heart with heart, center with center, person with person, in small groups, connected by our planetary nervous system, connected by our cell phones, our phone apps, our Facebook, our Twitter, infantile as they are right now, they are like an infant in the womb. We don't know yet fully what to communicate. But we're starting today what we're calling 3 days of love. And people all over the world, hundreds of thousands of people, are dedicated the next 3 days to think, feel, and do only acts of love. And we are evoking right now that in this room, we are calling for the love that's in this room. The feeling of connectedness with the divine impulse of evolution and with each other and with all of nature, all of the animal and natural kingdoms and human beings connected in love right now, infusing the planetary nervous system with love. This is a 13.7 billion year trend. When nature hits a crisis, it either goes extinct in that form or it innovates and transforms by creating new whole systems greater than the sum of our parts. We are in the process of an evolutionary shift right now, here. Now, in this very moment. Let's just take that in for a pause to see planet Earth as a whole living system. To feel ourselves as members of this living body. To experience the love for nature, for the divine, for each other in this room now. Connecting with all others anywhere in the world feeling the same. And learning the next lesson of evolution, that we are not doing this alone. We are in transition, guided by the impulse of evolution to form new whole systems far greater than the sum of our parts, right here and now, during the actual process of our birth, and focalized here in Byron Bay at the Uplift Festival. The reason every one of us is in this room right now is to add our joy, our energy, our love into this moment of the shift. And in order to help us visualize and believe in this, I want to tell you the story of the caterpillar. As we have heard, at some point in the caterpillar's existence, it's eating too much food. It's bloated. It's exhausted with over-consuming. And yet it keeps on eating and consuming more. Meanwhile, little tiny imaginal cells with a different genetic code pop up into the body of the bloated caterpillar. And they start proliferating and reproducing. They're carrying a new image of what's potential within that dying caterpillar. The caterpillar rises up, its genetic code recognizes something foreign, and it goes out and to destroy them. Assassinations, destructions of leaders, of anyone trying to do something new tends to get destroyed by that nervous system of the old system. But nonetheless, we proliferate, we resonate. We connect. And the caterpillar system begins to give up. It can't continue any longer because we have begun to consume the very substance of the old system into something new. And you can imagine yourself as an imaginal cell carrying an image of something that's coming. And in that body of the caterpillar, they need to create the wings, the antenna, the body. And all those little imaginal cells were drawn to each other and then into very special functions within the hidden body of the chrysalis. Until they were just ready, they had consumed enough of the substance of the dying caterpillar to be ready to burst forth in metamorphosis, the unexpected butterfly. Every human being who has some impulse of a better world, of giving a greater gift, of a loving or creative act, is an imaginal cell in the body of planet Earth. We are resonating, we are connecting, and we're just barely beginning to see a new picture of what we could become. Think of the pieces of a stained glass window making Chartres Cathedral rose window. Could we imagine from those separate pieces what that collective, beautiful stained glass window would be? Can we begin to see the outlines of the new human and the new humanity? The butterfly is a miracle, but then the whole process of evolution is a miracle. From the earliest origin of creation, through the whole billions of years of higher life form, of greater consciousness, of greater freedom, of more complex order, we are in the presence of a mystery so awesome that whether we try to understand it scientifically or spiritually or from an evolutionary point of view, we all fall down in awe and wonder at this mysterious, hidden, invisible process of creation just now beginning to break through in our own consciousness as the core of the spiral, the divine, the intention of creation. Because as we begin to connect and our creativity is turned on, the future begins to be revealed. This came to me in a vision in 1966. I asked the universe a question. I had asked, what is the meaning of our new power that's good? And this question is, what is our story? What story could we tell that, if we knew it, would be as great as the story of the birth of Christ was for those who were able to understand its meaning? What story could humanity possibly tell? And with that, I became an astronaut again, and I saw Earth as a living system, struggling to coordinate, running out of energy, pain through the whole body, until we had a moment of shared pain so great that we stopped. And in that pain, which we are feeling now when we hear about a typhoon, when we hear about a tsunami, when we hear about a hurricane, when we know any child is dying, its shared pain is finally being felt by the whole body. And with that, empathy began to flood through the nervous system of the planetary body in this vision. Now, I think that's exactly what's happening now. And on these 3 days, December 20th, 21st, and 22nd, people all over the world are connecting in love. The empathy has been increasing for scores of years, and it's hitting a peak now of the connectivity of love. And as I experienced that, the inner core of the spiral, the divine process of creation, began to become spoken directly through each of us, in our own language, in our own words. The inner words of spirit were being spoken, and the walls came down of the separate religions of the world as we began to experience what the mystics themselves had experienced, was the oneness and the inner impulse of creation. And with that, the healings took place throughout the world. Because in a field of resonance, empathy, spirituality, and love, the healing process is natural. And even more than that, in this story, suddenly I saw the innovations in every field, in health, education, economics, science and technology, new energy systems, began to be coordinated by the very same process that brought atom to atom, and molecule to molecule, and cell to cell. The process that was coordinating the whole ecological system began to coordinate our organs of creativity. And in an instant of time, I felt humanity come together as a whole with all its capacities functioning. And I saw we did have the resources, technology, and know-how to make the world work for everyone when we connect. And I went back and I tumbled through the evolutionary spiral from the dawn of creation all the way on up through the formation of life and animal life and human life. And I came out in this moment of time and saw that we are evolution becoming aware of itself. We are the impulse of creation becoming aware as humans of that impulse as the star of our play, the guiding force, the direction of evolution. It was clear to me that Mother Earth is giving birth to a kind of human capable of co-evolving with nature, capable of co-creating with spirit, capable of restoring the mother, freeing the people, and exploring the universe. I felt the cosmic code turn on. The cosmic code, from the origin of creation to the present, is create more conscious, loving life. You can see it for the billions and billions of years. And then the question arose in my mind, what kind of structure could we have? How could we bring ourselves together to feel that we're all members of one body? How could the organs of all our creative solutions come together to become one whole body? And actually, we began to see it as a wheel of co-creation. And what I did with my friends is I built these great wheels in auditoriums exactly like this. And there was health, education, economics, all the different organs in the social body were like sectors of the wheel. And people were invited to come in and state what they want to create, what they most need to create it, what resources they want to share. And then we took down the walls between all the sectors, and all of a sudden, we experienced social synergy. I felt like a chlorophyll molecule. I think we were beginning to feel multicellular human life because we needed to have all the parts together with the creative expression of the different organs of our creative self come together in some form of union. And we called it SynCon for synergistic convergence. And what I learned is synergy, the coming together of separate parts to form a new whole, is actually social love. Because when people, no matter how different they were, we did it with the gang leaders in Los Angeles, with young teenagers around the world, whenever they came together on what they want to create, what they need to create it, what resources they want to share, and we took down the walls that divide all the functions, took down the sectors of the wheel, we became a whole so much greater than the sum of our parts. So actually, we began to design a wheel of co-creation. And before this is over, you're going to be invited to do your part in the wheel, to be like the chlorophyll molecules. We're going to test it out on you. So let's look at that wheel just for a moment and see if this is a symbol of ourselves. It's a kind of diagram of ourselves when we become whole. We've never seen what it's actually like, but this is like just a very superficial symbol. We see at the hub of the wheel a new sacred space. And we're going to go into the hub of the wheel in a minute and feel the impulse of the divine intelligence of the universe coming through us, evolving us. This is incarnating the divine impulse of creation as yourself. And then around the hub is a global communion. Like right now we can feel we are live streaming. People are all over the world coming in with us now. And we're in a global communion reaching out in love to all those we love and they love, and beyond that, to create the first global communion of pioneering souls that are yearning to join, to create. And because we have now the internet, we have the cell phones, we have the apps, we have the live streaming, we're actually right now a global communion. And then you see something called the planetary DNA. What is the structure of the culture, of a planetary co-creative culture? We've never seen it before. We've never consciously designed a social system on a planetary scale that can restore the earth and free the people and explore the full potential of humanity. And then we see all the sectors. We're going to look at those in just a moment. And if you think of every sector right now filled with golden innovations that work, with breakthroughs in all these fields, and imagine them connecting like organs in a body, you'll see that we can make it work for all. That's actually what I ran for vice president on. I went to the Democratic National Convention in 1984, and I proposed a new function in the office of the vice president. As Bharat said, the function was to create a peace room as sophisticated as a war room. And the peace room, as a war room tracks every enemy and how to defeat them, the peace room tracks breakthroughs, innovations, successes, and how to connect them and communicate them. And I said that in 4 years we'd see the outlines of the emerging world because we're already here. And believe it or not, I was the other woman nominated for Vice President of the United States. I don't believe that any political system can do that now because it's structured top down. But the people, ourselves, with our communication and our heart, can actually create the peace rooms everywhere. We can create a little peace room in Byron Bay, a global communication hub that would be seeking out what's breaking through everywhere in this community, connecting it and bringing it together in the hub of the wheel of love, of heart, and then reaching out and communicating to the larger world what's working in Byron Bay. And let's say we have another one of those little peace rooms in Boulder, Colorado. There's one growing up there. Well, let's say that Boulder, Colorado is scanning, mapping, and connecting what's working in Colorado. And they're communicating that to Byron Bay. And let's say we have one in India. We can have them everywhere, of course. But different cultures can be scanning, mapping, and connecting and communicating. And do you know how quickly we could cultivate the culture of the emerging world if we did that? Because the fact is that we are like the chlorophyll molecule. We've brought in energy that can be destructive to the earth, but it also can give life if we properly use our new capacities that were given to us through the brilliance of the mind, understanding how the atom, the gene, the brain, the cell works. If we can use that brilliance with love, we are going to be able to harvest a new future for all Earth life. And I believe the clusters of the communication of what's emerging and creative joined at the heart is the pattern of the planetary culture that's being born right here and now through us. Yeah. And we can just imagine the global co-creators as the outer ring there. These would be all the masters, all the great geniuses, all the innovators and brilliant people in the arts and science, in energy, in economics, in new conscious business. Just imagine them all now surrounding us in love. And us bringing them in together through all our peace rooms and communication hubs so that we bring the genius in to meet with all the people who are beginning to restore the earth and free themselves to express their creativity. And we bring our genius together and we become literally seedlings of the new planetary culture now being born in our midst. And just like in nature, there are always patterns and designs that repeat themselves. That's why we're going to, right after this, when I get finished, do an experiment of inviting you to enter in to the various organs of the social body according to what's your passion to create. And we're just going to do the tiniest little experiment about how this might feel. So before we do that, let's just enter the hub of the wheel together. Let's allow it to be a new sacred space where the divine impulse of creation is coming through us collectively. We're seeing the pattern. We're being the pattern. We're expressing the pattern of creation joining us now in the hub of the wheel as a shared experience of divine intent. We place our attention in the silence, in the mind of God, And just breathe up through the core of the spiral, feeling the genius of evolution as it becomes energy, matter, life, animal life, human life, and now us. And bring it right up through your body into your first chakra. Breathing the core of the spiral through that chakra as your own security. Resting assured in not knowing, in the great process of creation, now incarnating consciously as our own security. Now breathing deeply from the silence all the way on up through the core of the spiral. Let's breathe it up into our second chakra, into our generative organs. Three, you can put your own hand on your own abdomen and feel the energy of the core of the spiral as it moves you toward regeneration, as it evolves you from procreation to include co-creation, expressing that divine creativity, regenerating you now, asking that core of the spiral for whatever impulse it has to give unto you. And now let's bring the core of the spiral up through our power center and feel the vast empowerment of the impulse of creation as it expresses as you. Magnificent, divine intent to create, to empower all life as we embody the impulse of evolution. Now let it rise up into the emotions. Where the fear, the pain, the sense of failure, I'm not good enough, I'll never make it, we'll never make it. And let's breathe the core of the spiral up through those emotions and orient them into our heart. Attract them up into the loving heart. Breathing the core of the spiral all the way up through the chakras until it reaches into the loving heart. Loving the process of divine creation. Loving the incarnation of that process in your own being, letting it fuse with you, as the divine process becomes your own heart. And you reach out to all you love, and you give your love out into infinite space. And now breathe up that core of the spiral all the way through the chakras, knowing it carries the code of evolution for more conscious life, more loving life. And actually now feel it as your own vocation, your own creativity, your own impulse to express more of who you truly are. Knowing that that impulse is incarnating and localizing as that unique and marvelous expression you are. Your life purpose. Your passion to create. your co-creative impulse. Going up now into your throat, letting your voice resonate with the impulse of creation, speaking as you, through you, as your word, as your expression of love, as your potential to give more of who you are. Let that word, as you speak it, become flesh in you. And just let that core of the spiral continue upward now into the third eye, into the great intuition, as the mental mind becomes transparent to the higher mind, to the process of creation, to the divine. Let that divine intent just come through as you, joining with your mental mind until the mental mind is transparent. And we go up through our highest frequency of our being, universal light, non-local, omnipresent, connected throughout the whole universe. And then breathe that down through ourselves, all the way down through all the chakras, to the mind of God, and then up through all the process, incarnating as you, out to the top of the head and down. As we become integrated as whole beings, as the universal process of creation localizes as each of us, as members of a planetary body about to be born, as a co-creative humanity, allowing that to infuse us now as we connect with all our ancestors and all our indigenous grandparents who are holding that code with us, and bringing all of the new understandings to join with the oneness of our source and our ancestors to give birth together to what we have not fully known before. And we're reaching out to the communion of pioneering souls. We're on our live stream. They're coming in from all over the world to join us now. Everyone, everywhere, with that flame of love in their hearts, igniting together that flame. Coming together as a whole.